What if somebody told you that they could read your mind? Would you believe it or run away in fear? Apparently, this is exactly what Dom Cobb is capable of. A young con artist with the ability of entering people's dreams and fishing out confidential information. Only for him, he is being sought after by his clients, and one of them is the wealthy Japanese Sato who offers him a unique job of a lifetime. If he is successful, it will become his biggest break. If not, he just might be making one of the most dangerous people in the world as his enemy. A young man washes ashore on a beach. Fatigued and dizzy, briefly looks up to see two little children playing in the sand before passing out. An armed guard discovers him and transports him to a coastal palace where the proprietor, an elderly Japanese man, is informed of the stranger's presence. The only items discovered on him were a pistol and a brass top. The old guy lets the stranger in. He is taken in and given food, which he fights to consume while the elderly man takes up the brass top and says, "You remind me of someone. A man I met in a half-remembered dream. He was possessed of some radical notions." As the scene changes, the stranger glances up in understanding. Dom Cobb and his partner, Arthur, discuss their services with a prospective client, Sato, in an eerily similar dining room. Specifically, protection against thieves who specialize in extracting valuable information from a subject while they're dreaming. Cobb reveals that while sleeping, one's mind is open to attack, and that he can train Sato's mind to subconsciously defend against extractors in order to safeguard whatever secrets he may be harboring. He backs up his claim by disclosing that he is the most proficient extractor in the business and is well versed in all of the tactics involved. Sato, who appears suspicious, stands to go, assuring Cobb that he would think about his proposal, and exits the room to join a small party in the main hall. As the room begins to tremble, Arthur casts a glance at Cobb and says he knows. They proceed to an outside balcony where other partygoers are congregating, and Arthur gestures to a woman nearby and asks Cobb what she's doing here. Cobb promises him that he will take care of it, and that the task will be completed. He knows where Sato's secrets are. The moment Cobb said the word, he glanced over at a safe. It turns out, Cobb does corporate surveillance of the greatest caliber. He infiltrates other men's thoughts in order to steal their ideas. Now he's been hired by a strong billionaire to do the opposite, to plant an idea in the mind of a competitor. At this moment, they are being tested by Sato in a dream for another plan that he has. Cobb tosses Sato on the floor and insists that he tell them everything they need to know about his expansion project, claiming that his employer, Cobalt Engineering, will not accept failure. With his face plastered against the carpet, Sato begins to chuckle again, revealing that he is familiar with the carpet's material. It is supposed to be made of wool rather than polyester. As a result, he concludes that he is still asleep. Sure enough, Sato, Arthur, Nash, and Cobb are all sleeping in a railway car, being watched over by a young guy named Tadashi, who is keeping track of the time remaining on the PASIV gadget. As a warning that their time is running out, he puts headphones over Nash's ears and starts playing music. The music is playing softly within the dream, yet loud enough for Nash to hear it. As the rioting throng outside approaches, Sato praises Cobb for creating a dream within a dream, but is perplexed by his inability to manage this dream. Nash admits that they aren't in Sato's dream, but in his. The mob bursts through the door, attacking everyone inside, and Arthur, Nash, and Cobb awaken on the train. Cobb scolds Nash, the dream's architect, for designing the carpet incorrectly, and throws a wad of cash at Tadashi before leaving, telling them every man for himself. Sato awakens to find himself alone in the car, save for Tadashi, who has resumed a casual attitude but smiles bitterly to himself. Cobb spins his brass top in his flat and takes his gun, pointing it at his temple while the top rotates. When it hits the ground, he exhales a sigh of relief and puts the rifle down. When his phone rings, he answers it to find his two children, James and Philippa, on the other end of the line with their grandmother. When they inquire when he'll be home, he says he won't be able to because of work. Cobb pauses and informs James that Mummy's not here anymore when James asks whether their mother is with him, an image of Mal flashing across his head. Before their grandma hangs up, he urges them to behave and that he'll send gifts with Grandpa. Arthur knocks on the door and informs Cobb that their vehicle is on the roof. Cobb decides to fly to Buenos Aires to hide out after their unsuccessful work for Cobalt, while Arthur claims to be returning stateside. As they open the door to the chopper and see Nash, bloodied and bruised, and Sato waiting for them, Cobb asks him to give his regards. Nash appears to have tried to sell out Cobb and Arthur for his own protection, but Sato has other priorities. Cobb is offered a position performing Inception for him, which Arthur claims is impossible. Cobb, on the other hand, claims that it is not impossible, but highly difficult because it entails planting a concept in someone's mind rather than extracting one. He pulls away, stating that he will find a way to settle his differences with Cobalt on his own. but Sato then asks him if he wants to return to his children in America. He promises Cobb that if he succeeds, all he has to do is make a phone call and the charges that are keeping him out of the nation would be lifted. Cobb accepts out of desperation. Much to Arthur's chagrin, they board the chopper with Sato as two goons transport Nash to an unknown fate. On the way, Arthur discusses the nature of Inception to Sato, explaining that simply planting an idea in someone's head does not guarantee that the concept will take. The subject may learn that the concept is not theirs and reject it. Despite Cobb's protestations to the contrary, Arthur believes that true inspiration is unattainable. Sato explains why he wants the job. He wants the CEO of a competing energy conglomerate to split up his father's company, assuring Sato's own Proclus global complete dominance over the energy production industry. Cobb heads to Paris to meet his father-in-law, Miles, a university lecturer who taught Cobb and Mal about dream sharing and dream creation. Cobb requests an architect who is as good as he is, and Miles refers him to someone who is superior. He introduces Cobb to one of his graduate students, Ariadne, who is immediately put to the test by Cobb by designing a maze that takes 1 minute to make and 2 minutes to complete. Cobb is impressed with her abilities, so he tells her more about his line of business and what she is expected to do. Her duty as an architect will be to build dreams and virtual mazes for the mind of the dreamer to occupy while Cobb and his team work. Cobb tries to make Ariadne realize that they are in a dream while they converse outside a cafe. Ariadne panics as she realizes what has happened, and the dream violently collapses. When they awaken, Ariadne discovers that they are in Cobb's warehouse workshop, where Arthur is keeping an eye on them. Ariadne is surprised when Arthur says they've just been there 5 minutes when it feels like hours. Cobb explains that because the mind processes faster in a dream, time passes more slowly. They sync once more, and Ariadne is given the chance to artistically modify the physics of the dream. Her architectural marvels inspire the dream's inhabitants, representations of Cobb's subconscious. To seek out the intruder, Ariadne, like white blood cells drawn to a virus, Cobb realizes Ariadne's mistake of establishing a bridge from her memories, and his subconscious reacts as a mob, separating Ariadne from Cobb until Mal appears and stabs her. Cobb wakes up and hurries to the restroom as Arthur says that Cobb's subconscious became aware of her as an invasive entity, and she was unable to wake up immediately due to the remaining time on the clock. Her only chance of waking up was if she died. Cobb pulls out his shirt and spins it, moaning as it collapses. Ariadne storms out of the warehouse, furious and refusing to open her mind to Cobb if his subconscious is as troubled as it appears. Cobb returns to the room and promises Arthur that she will return, but that he must travel to Mombasa to recruit an old buddy for the squad. He spots Eames gambling in a pub and offers him a job as a forger, imitator on his squad. Eames agrees before informing Cobb that he is being followed by 2 men at the bar. Cobb identifies them as Cobalt thugs intent on collecting the reward placed on his head for the failed Sato job. While Cobb flees, Eames creates a distraction, leading the thugs on a chaotic chase through the city streets. At the last moment, Sato arrives in a limousine and takes up Cobb first. Then he explains that he's been looking for Cobb in order to protect his investment. Eames brings them to a local chemist he knows who works with Somnasin and could be useful to their team. Cobb reveals to Yusuf that his profession may necessitate the usage of a 3-layered dream. Yusuf claims that if it weren't for a specific solution he's devised with a heavy sedative, this would be impossible owing to the instability of dreams the deeper you go. Yusuf brings them downstairs to observe dozens of guys sleeping under the watchful eye of an old man to demonstrate its efficiency. He informs Cobb that these men have come to wake up, that their dreams have become their reality. Cobb accepts the offer and forms his team, which includes Eames, an identity forger, Yusuf, a chemist with a sedative for the dream inside a dream plan, and Ariadne, an architectural student of his father-in-law, who is tasked with building the dream's labyrinth. Cobb's mind, Ariadne discovers, has an invasive projection of his late wife, Mel. Following Fisher's death, the crew joins Robert on a flight and sedates him into a shared dream. At each dream level, the dream generator stays behind to set up a kick to awaken other team members from the deeper dream. The first level is Yusuf's Los Angeles fantasy. The crew kidnaps Robert, but he is assailed by subconscious projections. Cobb explains that whereas dying in a dream would ordinarily awaken dreamers, the sedatives will instead transport them into limbo, a state of infinite unconsciousness. Eames pretends to be Robert's godfather, Peter Browning, in order to persuade him to reconsider his father's will. Cobb informs Ariadne that he and Mel went into limbo while testing dream-sharing technology. They experienced 50 years in a fantasy world after being sedated for 5 hours of real time. Cobb utilized Inception to reactivate Mal's totem, an artifact dreamers use to distinguish dreams from reality. When Mal refused to return to reality, Mal was still convinced she was dreaming after waking up. In order to wake up, she committed herself and framed Cobb in order to drive him to do the same. Cobb fled the country, leaving his children in the care of Miles. As they are taken into the second floor of Arthur's hotel, Yusuf drives the team around the first level. Cobb convinces Robert that he has been kidnapped by Browning and that Cobb is his subconscious defender, dragging Robert deeper as part of a ruse to enter Robert's subconscious. In the third level, the crew infiltrates Eames' dreamed of fortified mountain hospital and holds off the guards while Sato transports Robert into the equivalent of his mind. In the first level, Yusuf, pursued by Robert's projections, purposefully drives off a bridge, launching his kick too soon. This triggers an avalanche in Eames' level and eliminates gravity from Arthur's level, forcing Arthur to design a new kick that is timed to coincide with the van hitting the ocean. Mal's projection appears at Eames' level and kills Robert. Cobb kills Mal, and Sato dies from his injuries. Cobb and Ariadne go into limbo to save Robert and Sato, while Eames plans a surprise by rigging the hospital with explosives. Cobb comes to terms with Mal's death. Ariadne kills Mal's projection and kicks Robert awake. He awakens at the third level to find the planted idea, a projection of his dying father telling him to be his own man. The others ride the kicks back to reality as Cobb seeks for Sato in limbo. Cobb comes across an elderly Sato and reminds him of their deal. On the plane, the dreamers all awaken, and Sato makes a phone call. Cobb arrives at Los Angeles International Airport, clears the immigration gate, and Miles drives him to his home. Cobb employs Mal's totem, a spinning top in a dream that spins eternally, to see if he is in the real world, but he chooses not to observe the outcome and instead joins his children.